at 6:01. And we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'm starting off. I'm going to make a motion to make some adjustments here. I would like, is number 2 on H, Superintendent's Report, School Safety Incident Update, to be discussed after approval of minutes. And then would also like new business, J, to be moved up before Superintendent's Reports, H.
Yep.
Make a motion to accept, seconded by John. All in favor? All in favor, thank you. Okay. No approval of minutes. Mr. Nelson?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I did want to take an opportunity to talk about an incident that happened last Tuesday, November 15th. Dispatch centers in 10 communities throughout the state of Maine received what authorities called hoax-style phone calls last Tuesday morning, alerting them falsely to an active shooter inside local schools. Sanford High School and Sanford Regional Technical Center was the first, as dispatch received a call at 8:20. Our school was put in a lockdown immediately after the school resource officer received the information from dispatch. That call to dispatch reported many false details. The caller identified themselves as a teacher who was locked in a staff room, stating that there were 5 injured and that there was an active shooter dressed in a black coat and black pants with a long rifle on the first floor in the high school, all which turned out to be false. When we had that report, our procedures were followed. The Sanford Strategic Response Team responded to the high school and conducted a search that determined no violence had occurred. Our students and staff were moved to the gymnasium before being evacuated to Memorial Gym, where they were picked up by parents, brought home on buses, or brought back to the high school to get their vehicles. Nonetheless, this was an extremely stressful and terrifying time for all of our staff and our students who were involved. I can't thank our students and our staff and our administrators and our teachers, law enforcement, our first responders, our families, and the Sanford community for their response under those stressful and terrifying circumstances. As educators, we're educators. We're not trained as first responders for that. But I am so proud of everyone under those circumstances. We made the decision not to have school on Wednesday for Sanford High School and Sanford Regional Technical Center, but we allowed students to come into school to retrieve any belongings and to also access counselors if necessary. We wanted to support our staff on Wednesday as well, and also prepare for our return of students on Thursday so that we could have the best plan to be able to move forward. As I've mentioned, I wouldn't wish this experience on anyone. We're grateful first and foremost that there was not a tragedy, and I'm also grateful that we followed our training. One of the things that we've made, it's always a priority of school safety, but in light of recent incidents throughout the country, that was something that we identified as a priority for us. It's identified as a school goal. It's something that has started right from the end of last year, right on in the summer, right through our training, right through our first day with staff as they came back in August, and it will continue to be as it's ongoing for that. It's a point of emphasis now that in everything that we do. We have incorporated the ALICE training and started to be able to introduce that and be able to build on that. And I think also something that is a priority in our district is also the relationships that we have that start in our classrooms with our students and with our teachers and our staff, but those relationships that also go back through all the different entities throughout the city that can be able to come back to be able to help with that. We've been doing there's been a lot of time for reflection, a lot of debriefs that have been going on. As you know, overall, very happy and pleased with the response, but there's also a lot of takeaways that we can also come back and learn so that we can be able to do things better. Those have already started to take place. We're asking for input from our staff that we can evaluate, as well as with our administrators, plans in place to build that. Administration from Sanford Regional Technical Center, Sanford High School, and from Central Office, we participated in a debrief this afternoon over at the police department where all the entities came together to be able to review the incident and also look for ways of some takeaways for things that we did well, and also some of those things that we can do better on going forward in the areas of how we can make sure that our communication during those stressful, terrifying times is quicker, and also be looking at how we do things in terms of when it is the reunification site and the different things that are going on there. There was, in that meeting today, there's some takeaways of some things that I think are things that we need to be doing immediately, not only just at Sanford High School, Sanford Regional Technical Center, but at all of our schools, some things that we can be able to look for. Then there's also going to be those things that we're ongoing in terms of part of our future training for us to be able to come back and be able to look at that. But all in all, I'm very proud of our response. I'm very proud to be the superintendent at Sanford in terms of how, under the most difficult and challenging circumstances, that we were able to conduct ourselves and be able to handle a situation. As I said, was very fortunate that it turned out to not be accurate, but at the same time, to see the support that we've got. There's been supports from the community in terms of stepping up and supporting us in many different ways, whether that be dropping off refreshments or food. We've had many people step up to do things to provide that, to help us be able to go on. I think our neighbors at Noble High School bought the staff lunch last Friday. I know we've had a number of people outside, both inside Sanford and outside Sanford, who've stepped up with counselors to be able to make themselves available through our sending schools. And so anytime you can take an incident like this that is negative and do our best to turn it into a positive and learning is what we're trying to do. Realizing that it was significant and there's trauma that's involved, so we're trying to balance that, the sensitivity of being able to look at that, but also make sure that we're going to be better for that. So I wanted to let the school committee know that, and our audience, as well as the people at home watching, that that is something that we're working on, and it's ongoing for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Public comments. For the sake of time and everything, I'm going to ask that we divide the public comments in two different categories. One, if anybody has comments about Tuesday's events, and then next we can talk about scheduling comments. And before we do that, before we start those conversations, I'd like to read the statement regarding public comments in general. In order that the board have time to fully consider and discuss the issue, I'm setting aside up to, how much time? We'll do 3 minutes per person. For those that have not participated in our meetings before, I want to review a few rules ahead of time to ensure that the public comment process goes smoothly and there are no surprises. Please, when you come up to speak, right here, identify yourself, name and town of residence. Please try to be brief and try not to repeat yourself. We know discussions of school-related issues can get emotional. Let's remember that we have children watching in our community watching and that we're all neighbors. So let's treat each other with respect and let's not make disparaging comments or attack individuals or group of individuals. Speakers should direct all comments to the board. This is an opportunity for us to listen to the opinions of the public that relate to school and education matters. It is not a public debate or a conversation. No questions should be directed to the board, and the board will not be responding to any questions if they are asked. We want to listen to what you have to say. The board will not permit complaints or allegations against staff members. These are personnel matters which the board is not permitted to hear in public. If there are complaints against staff, these will be handled appropriately through our complaint procedure. Thank you for your patience while I made this instruction, and let's get started. We have Matt, Mr. Peterman, and Mr. Erickson that would like to speak.
Paula, were you going to do the scheduling first, or were you going to do the other one first, as far as?
The other one first.
I'm Matt Peterman. I'm the principal of Sanford High School. I've rehearsed this in my head 1,000 times, so I don't know why I'm having trouble with it now, but I do have my notes just so I can keep myself somewhat balanced. Tuesday at 8:22 a.m., I called the building into a lockdown. And when I put the handle or the hand receiver back on the set, I saw blue lights coming up the boulevard. This is every educator's nightmare. I didn't know necessarily what was going on. My school resource officer had just told me to lock down the building. I located him right away. He said that we had a shooter in the building and there were 5 down. So from that point in time, the adrenaline was running. It wasn't but 3 minutes and the first officers were running to the door. There wasn't any walking, there wasn't any hesitation. They came straight to the door, and there were a lot of them. They called the cavalry. We had first responders, we had law enforcement from every agency under the sun, even a few that I might not have even recognized. It was comforting to see, but we were worried. The response was immediate without hesitation. We ended up having to clear each room. We had to use an alternate evacuation site because of the weather. We didn't know how long it was going to take. It was the longest 4 hours of my life, and I can't imagine what it was like being in the classrooms. Ultimately, everyone was safe, but somebody who gets their kicks off of doing these things and watching the news and publicizing themselves hurt a lot of people that day. Those are our kids in that building. It's my staff, it's our staff, it's all of our community, and it was difficult to watch. I saw educators with no combat or law enforcement experience running to help. No protection, no weapon. They were doing their job. Our procedures work. While they like to call this a hoax, there was no hoax about it. To us, it was real. We fought through it. We went to the very end. I was not leaving that building until we knew we had every single person out safe. So I hate it when they call it a hoax. The damage is permanent. Young minds, young staff, everybody, veteran staff, it impacted everyone. Nobody gets into education to do this. The overwhelming support has been phenomenal. I don't know, you know, the Chief Craig Anderson was there. He was probably the 5th or 6th officer in the building and took control of the situation. It was smooth. You know, you had the Sanford Police Department, York County Sheriff's Department, Maine State Police, U.S. Marshals. We had air marshals in the building. We had a Marine Patrol officer in the building. Everybody was there, and they all listened under his direction. I didn't realize it at first, but when I looked back at some film and I saw the staging from the fire department and our emergency responders outside, it was amazing how they had everything set up. Mr. B was on the spot when I called for buses. They were all lined up, ready to go as soon as we began our evacuation process. Regardless to say, the events of November 15th are not any that will leave us anytime soon. Our world was turned upside down. However, the response was superb. I have to thank the Sanford Police Department, Sanford Fire Department, York County Sheriff's Department, all those who we worked with. I worked with officers from the Marshals, from the Kennebunk Police Department, Maine State Police, everybody. But I do need to thank Mr. Nelson, Mr. Boussier, and Mrs. Lambert. They all played a part. Whenever I needed anything, they were there. I called on the radio, I called on the phone. I always had what I needed when I needed it. Other school administrators and staff as well. We had counselors from around the county. Other administrators from other districts reached out. We even got food from Noble High School and our community members as well throughout the week. The response was phenomenal. I think it brought us all together. Are there lessons learned? Yes. Can we always do better? Yes. But ultimately, the end result was the best it could possibly be.
I want to thank you guys for allowing us to speak here tonight. My name is Nicholas Erickson. I'm the president of the Sanford Federation of Teachers, math department chair, and most importantly, a parent of a current Sanford High student, a parent of 2 Sanford High grads, and a parent of a future Sanford High grad. I want to come here to talk to you about a very important matter. I want to take a moment to express my gratitude to all the people that showed up on Tuesday to help in one of the most horrible situations we could ever imagine. I want to thank for what feels like hundreds of police officers from all over the region that came to our aid with no remorse for their own well-being. These police officers made me and my students feel incredibly safe in a very unsafe situation. As I am sure many of the other classrooms had the same experiences, I cannot think of one thing those brave men and women did that could have done better. I want to thank all the first responders that were ready to go if the worst did happen. The medical facilities that prepared for the worst and were ready to go. The bus drivers that showed up in full force to get all the students to Memorial Gym as fast as possible. Everyone that showed up at Memorial Gym to make sure the students were safe and could be reunited with their families. The loved ones that sat patiently outside of Memorial Gym for their children to come out of the door to hug them. The numerous organizations that provided drinks and foods and much more to the staff during and after the event. I want to thank the thousands and thousands of people that reached out to our staff and students to make sure they were safe. I want to thank the administration, especially Matt Peterman, Troy Watts, Aaron Tremblay, and Amanda Doyle for putting yourself in danger as you worked with the police force to find each and every one of us in this massive building. Officers Paul Goldsmith and Tipper Thornton for being the first officers on the scene. To our staff at SHS and SRTC for being absolutely amazing on what will hopefully be the scariest day of your career. Most of all, our students. You truly are an amazing group of young adults. Your strength throughout this event will follow you forever. We are so proud of you and how you handled yourself through this horrible situation. This event happened, and that cannot be changed. But we are now so much stronger as a staff, school, and community. Once again, I want to thank each and every one of you that supported our community in the wake of this horrible act. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, is there anybody Is there anybody else that would like to speak about Tuesday? Okay. Oh, John Paul?
I do want to read something that a student or somebody from the Sanford community did post on Facebook that I just think captures kind of what went through our minds as a student. It's just a quote from a very long thing, but it might have just been a prank call, but it was real to us. It was real to the kids who thought they were going to die. It was real to the parents who were worried that they wouldn't see their kids ever again. It was real to the cops who went there to protect us. It was real to the siblings who had to find out that their sibling was in a real lockdown. Tuesday was crazy. I was in a room that was more closed off. I didn't really know what was going on. When we heard the announcement that it was a lockdown, we all knew that he didn't say drill, but it didn't really set in. And it was crazy. But coming out of that classroom and seeing everybody that was there, and especially when we left on the buses, I had always wondered, I want to be in law enforcement when I'm older, I'd always wondered what actually is the plan, or who's coming, and seeing that response and how things went was reassuring for me. So I want to thank all the staff and for what they did on Tuesday, as well as you guys for coming at Memorial Gym to help. It was just very reassuring and kind of helped calm things down a little bit. So thank you.
Good. Thank you, John Paul. Does anybody want to say anything? Amy?
I just, it's, there just are no words, and I think, everyone went above and beyond, and just so grateful that it turned out the way it did, and so grateful for the Sanford students that we have, so grateful for the Sanford staff that we have, and the community members that we have, because we're just so very lucky. So prayers were answered.
I agree. I don't think I can say much more because I might start crying here. I'm just glad that things turned out the way they did. And I'm really proud of our community, proud of the students, parents that were waiting, just everything. Thank you. Okay, moving on to public comments about the schedule. Sarah, is there anybody? No? Okay. Okay, let's move on to no communications, committee reports.
So, just an update, as we mentioned at the last meeting, regarding the schedule at the high school and SRTC and the work of the Schedule Advisory Committee. That was something that we provided after over a year's worth of work from that committee. We presented our work to the school committee in a workshop. Then we had a public a presentation for all stakeholders in the Performing Arts Center. At our meeting last week, we also had public comment for that. And then after our last meeting, we also scheduled a workshop last Thursday to further discuss that. There was a presentation from teachers regarding their feedback on the work of the advisory committee and thoughts that they were able to share. And so I think our process has reached us to this point. One thing here in this advisory committee update, I think it would be helpful if Principal Peterman comes up, because I think one of the things along this, we were looking at a concern about changing the schedule about the staffing impact that we would have. And Matt, working with Beth and others, Beth Letourneau and others, tried to do a real deep dive into that to kind of find out what that staffing would look like for a 5 block schedule. But I think through that was also an opportunity to also look at it staffing perspective as well for the current schedule with the 4 blocks and 2 enrichments. So I think, Matt, if you don't mind, if you could come up and try to present some of that work that you had found scheduled around the staffing piece of the schedule, I think that would be helpful information.
Get myself back in order. So I'll save you some of it, because, I mean, we went over this last week, some of the history and the current situation, and then the process of running through. I mean, ultimately, it's hard to look at things, you know, when you're speaking in hypotheticals. Everything from the student requests, they change every year. Every master schedule is unique. But running through this has, you know, made me realize with the current schedule we're in, and even with our temporary positions that we have now, the ESSER-3 positions, we would not be able to run freshman teaming, nor would we be able to have seminar. We tried to look at it even...
Without adding new positions.
Correct. Well, and that would include keeping the current ESSER positions we have. Because part of this is the 9th grade, you want to run year-long English and math. It just takes up a huge chunk of teacher schedules. We even had looked at taking the APs and doing them every other year. Or every other day, sorry. We buy back a few sections in a couple of departments, but we don't buy back enough to run that year-long English or the year-long math without additional help. Without those ESSER positions in our current schedule, the class sizes will go up from what they are currently right now. I don't know that study halls and things like that are going to necessarily help us in that situation. In a 5-block schedule, we are still looking at some of those temporary positions staying on board, but it being able to run freshman teaming in a 5-block schedule, we could run year-long English and math with a seminar with those 4 additional temporary ESSER positions brought on board, plus potentially the ed tech to cover study halls. It does become, you know, a budgetary thing as well. Obviously, when you play through things in your mind and you think about how impacts are going to be, because we talked about in a 5-block schedule, teachers would be able to teach 4 per semester, so 8 out of 10 slots throughout their school year, whereas right now they're doing 6 out of 8. But again, you have a certain number of students that still have to take classes, so they need to fill seats in something because they'll still need credits. And I think that was the part that I just didn't know how that would play out. And after running through the scenarios multiple times and having a trial run through Infinite Campus kind of helped us understand how that would shake out if we ran current schedule the way it is and then ran it with 5 blocks.
So we understand, just so people know, when we talk about the ESSER positions, those are funds that we were given to help us in terms of responding to the pandemic. And those funds were funds that were allowed to be used for a 3-year period. We are currently in the 2nd year of that 3-year period. Sanford, we chose to use those funds in a way that was going to allow our kids to come back to school full-time, 5 days a week. So we did that to help us address with, and also the other purpose around that was to help with any educational recovery, to address any learning loss. And so we were trying to add those positions in. So when we talk about ESSER 3 positions, those are positions that are not part of our local budget. And we are in the second year, and so we have funds for those identified for a third year. So I think it would be important for people as, for the school committee in terms of understanding their decision this evening, that I just want to be clear that, and one of the things that it came through our process was to also help with people's transition to high school, students' transition to high school, and also looking at educational recovery and learning loss. There was interest in teaming, and as Matt mentioned, in teaming, some of that would be where our first-year students would have English class all year long. They would also have math class all year long, and there would also be a seminar section also required that the freshmen would belong to a team of students, a team of teachers, and what they'd be able to do in that situation was with seminar that would help with some of the executive functioning challenges and some of where our students are in coming out of the pandemic. And so that was something as we looked at. I know as we had the presentation last Thursday night, we do have the ability in the current schedule that we have, which would be the 4 blocks plus the 2 enrichments, we have the ability that with the ESSER positions that we have, would we be able to accommodate teaming, or would there, with what I just outlined, or would we still have to add additional teachers? And I realize, as you mentioned, Matt, I'm putting you on the spot, but that's difficult because of the hypotheticals and the things that we have to look at. But I think that that staffing piece is also an important part of this consideration.
Well, I mean, as you look at it right now, we're not running we're not running English year-long, and we're not running seminar in our current schedule with our numbers the way they are. So you wouldn't have that ability to run those year-long. And like in my conversations with Beth Letourneau, if we're going to do teaming, we need to do it right. And we would not be able to have a seminar unless we did something creative. Maybe seminar happened during the enrichment blocks for all 9th graders. I mean.
So now we look at a 5-block schedule with the ESSER positions that we have. Would we be able to, what would be the impact for staffing to offer teaming with all students having English, all students having math, and a seminar? Would there also have to be positions added there for us to have that?
No, I think we would be set with what we have right now.
And then going forward, if the ESSER positions are removed, as we start to play this a year out, 2 years out, in order for that to happen, we would need staffing and positions to be able to do that, to support what that would be.
Correct. If we were to continue the teaming and the seminar, we would need, I think, like I said, those 4 positions
At a
at a minimum. Yep.
To be able to do that. Okay.
What would the classroom, you kind of touched upon that when you started with the classroom sizes. So keeping what we have right now, the classroom sizes, when the ESSER funds go away, they would go up to 30 plus?
I think the max size right now is 28.
Yeah.
We do have some that are that size. Yes, we'd be over 30.
And so if we went to the 5 blocks with the staffing that, when ESSER funds go away, and if we were to go to the 5, what would those classroom sizes be?
They'll definitely go down.
Hi, Beth Letourneau. Couldn't help myself. So we ran it with 4 blocks and 5 blocks, and with both sizes, we were instructed to run it with 28 at honors, AP, and CP, and then 20 for applied level. So the same class size that we have currently.
Say that one more time then.
So when we, when we ran the simulation, even
Sure.
with 5 blocks, we left the maximums where they were at.
Currently.
Yes, currently, just to apples. I don't believe we exceeded class sizes when we ran that simulation, though. And I think that's the part of this that they should go down from where they currently are, just as a result of that. But if those ESSER positions go away, they have to go up. There's no,
With the current schedule.
Yes.
in the current permanent staffing, when ESSER goes away.
Thanks.
Anybody else have questions? John?
So, if ESSER funds stay, or those staff become full staff, then we're okay. But if those do not transition, we're pretty much in a one-year situation, and then it would have to change no matter what.
Which schedule are you talking of, 4 or 5?
So like, currently, what we have, ESSER funds go away, classroom sizes go up.
Correct.
ESSER funds stay, or like staff stays, then classrooms stay the way that they are. If 5 blocks goes, we need to keep those ESSER teachers no matter what, just to be able to make.
Let me break it down. Let me break it down for you. So current schedule, how we are now, when the ESSER funds go away, our class sizes will go up. If we go to 5 blocks with teaming with our current staff numbers, which include ESSER, then class sizes will remain about the same. If we go to 5 blocks, lose the ESSER funds, in order to maintain teaming, we need 4 additional staff. Does that make sense?
And if we don't maintain teaming,
Then we would not need the 4 additional staff in 5 blocks with no ESSER positions and no teaming.
and with class sizes not any higher than what we have now,
Correct.
what about the 4-block schedule with 2 enrichments?
In regards to no ESSER positions, yep, so our current schedule with no ESSER positions, and I believe we have 8 in the building, our class sizes would have to go up. There would be no other option.
And that's where the 30 plus, or 30?
Correct. Because we're at 28 now. And it's hard. Some classes have 28, some have 24, some have 22.
Okay.
But it also comes back to almost, you now have same staff, 4 blocks, having 3 out of 4. When you go 4 out of 5, you add more sections,
Correct.
which in theory can also bring down those class sizes.
Yes.
Not some, it kind of, there's context to it, but I also think in general, overall, I think, because I know for us, as we last year went through the budget, that was a message that we heard loud and clear from at least the budget committee and the city council about where these ESSER positions were. And for us, it's about using them in an opportunity to help us with the impact of where it was with the pandemic and looking at it. Then the idea about still offering a schedule, but if there are going to be those things like teaming or seminar and year-long classes that we can help with, we can have an opportunity to bring that. We'll have an opportunity to at least have some data to go through and see how that's working and how that impact is.
Okay, anybody else have any comments or questions? John?
I think we know ESSER funds are going away. It was a 3-year period, correct? And we don't know, well, we know they're going away, and we don't know what the forthcoming budget will look like. So there's some things that are simply out of our control. We know the student population or enrollment, that's about all we know. So anyway, I remember talking about ESSER. One of the positives, well, there's several positives to the ESSER funds, but one that I kind of latched onto was it was also an opportunity to get some folks into our system where maybe a teacher retires, a teacher leaves the system for whatever reason. Now we've got some trained folks in our system that we could turn into full-time. So there's a lot of great positives to ESSER, so just so folks know that.
Okay,
Any more questions for Matt or
any
Beth?
more questions or anything to add or to? I'm looking at you too.
I think, the questions are about staffing, and there really is no easy answer in this, right? If we go to 5 blocks, we could potentially have smaller class sizes, do teaming, but after the ESSER positions leave, would still have to hire additional staff to maintain the teaming. But then we also have a loss of instructional time. So it's hard. There's no easy answer on this. I think it's deciding for yourselves what your priority is as a board.
Okay. Thank you.
That was very well said, because that's been, as Beth knows, as being part of our schedule advisory committee, that's been the challenge all along, is there's not a option out there that brings everything that checks all of those boxes. There's going to become at the expense of something else that you're able to come back and be able to look at that. And that's how hard the process has been as we've gone through that. But I also think it's important that staffing is something that we are talking about as a consideration, just because of, with all the work that's gone into what we've done. And that's difficult, right? We're talking about a discussion now in November, because remember, if we are going to make a schedule change or we're going to continue with the same one we have, we need to know that now to be able to start planning for it. Unfortunately, the budget is not something that we're going to start taking on at the school committee level until the end of January. And so we do know, as Jonathan pointed out, that the ESSER positions are something that we do know that we have those in place for 2023, 2024 with it. So thank you.
Okay, so here we are after this long process, and we are scheduled to make a decision tonight. We've had 42 hours of meetings. We started out with what we need in a schedule, what we want in a schedule, what we cannot have in a schedule. We narrowed it down to 8 blocks, 6 blocks, 5 blocks, 4 blocks, 4 blocks with enrichments. And then, we definitely uncovered plenty of ancillary situations or items that we needed to tackle regardless of what schedule we have. It definitely became clear to everybody that there is no perfect schedule, and that, like Beth said, we just have to figure out how to move forward, and that there's valid points for each. We finally decided on 5 blocks or 4 blocks with enrichments, and then Amy and I had the opportunity to meet with Kelly and with Nick, with the SFT, and we've had a public comment meeting, and we've had 2 workshops. So here we are. Recommendation to take action on the...
So I would just say that I was a part of the scheduling committee, and I personally am a proponent of the 5-block schedule because I believe that the 5-block schedule provides the most opportunity for the most number of students. Additionally, as we've uncovered, the benefits of freshman teaming and seminar, both in year-long English and year-long math, I think it is a preventative approach to a student's entire high school career. And as far as the ESSER positions go, I think we're in a much better position when we have a proactive approach to those preventative measures for future budget cycles with the newly, I guess we don't have budget committee anymore, but the newly established committee to have those holistic conversations about what we're doing well instead of just continually saying we need more staffing. I think it can back it up if we can say that we're being preventative. So with that being said, I make a motion to institute a 5-block schedule for Sanford High School to begin in the 2023-24 year, to include freshman teaming and seminar, AP classes every other day, and electives for all students of all levels, including enrichments.
Okay. Does anybody second that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? No? Okay. All in favor? All in favor? Opposed? Amy's opposed. Okay. Okay, moving forward to superintendent reports.
Sure, we can start out, sorry. We can start out with the student rep reports.
So today was the first day of the winter sports season. Basketball tryouts started today. Wrestling practices started today. So I think we're all pretty excited. I had my first wrestling practice today, and it was pretty long, but it was fun. So.
I just wanted to quickly talk about the Thanksgiving food drive for peer helpers. They've been working over the past week and a half to gather all the materials and assemble the baskets for the 40 families to support them, and that has been accomplished. So I just wanted to give an update on that.
And then I'll talk about the Clue play that happened on Friday. They had 2 performances on Friday, one during the day for students, then one at night, and then there was also 2 more shows on Saturday. It was very entertaining to watch, very funny. I think people enjoyed it, and the actors did a very good job, so good show.
Can I just second JP? You're all fabulous. I'm happy about winter sports starting, as well as the wonderful work being done with the baskets. But I got to give a shout out to Clue, because it was really one of the most clever plays outside of a musical. I love me a musical, that I probably have seen. It was really, really clever. Yeah.
Ditto. It was very entertaining.
Okay, moving forward, Sanford Spotlight.
Sure, so that leads us off as we bring it on. We haven't put this edition out yet, so it'll be coming, but you'll see it leads off talking about Clue. I also was able to see that Friday and enjoyed it very much, thought it was very clever. Back on November 10th, we had the College and Career Fair, sponsored by Sanford Regional Technical Center, for all of our SRT students as well as our high school students. They hosted 37 companies and organizations and 36 colleges in all branches of the U.S. Armed Forces for that. Sanford Middle School, they took part in BioMe's 7th Annual Maine Bioscience Day on Monday, November 14th. You may be asking what that is. It's a statewide event that aims to get middle school students excited about science and expose them to opportunities to work in a science-related field. So students and staff took a trip across the city to visit the Baker Company, where they participated in several activities highlighting the science of biocontainment. With that, Baker Company, which is right here in Sanford, develops technology in biocontainment and contamination control for a wide variety of applications. Middle school students were able to tour the facilities, test some technology, and observe real-world applications. Carl J. Lamb recognized our bus drivers by giving them Dunkin' Donut gift cards. This was money that was donated by teachers and staff at Carl J. Lamb School with that. So that's great. And Carl J. Lamb also had their craft fair. That was always been very popular. It returned after a hiatus due to COVID this past Saturday for that. Margaret Chase Smith School students in first grade were busy last week using their proper reading and writing habits to solve challenging words, and then also a big congratulations to Garrett D. and Nora F. as they were selected to ride to school on Tuesday and Wednesday on a fire truck. As you remember, that was part of the Fire Safety Prevention Month with that. You see their pictures there. Our fourth grade chorus sang on Veterans Day in honor of our veterans. With that, we'll have a link in the spotlight for that. And also as they focused on Veterans Day. Sanford Community Adult Education, be on the lookout for the winter brochure. That is scheduled to arrive before Christmas. So there may be opportunities there for people to take advantage of. We always try to link up with our Sanford High School online newspaper, the Spartan Times. This week, there was a heartfelt editorial by Devin, a senior, who reflected on last week's swatting event with that. Well done, Devin. And then, as always, we have announcements that people will be able to use through our app. And then we also have assistance for the holidays. There's links there available for resources. Also opportunities, we continue to be hiring. And then in other news, MCS and Pride, the combined PTA, they had a turkey trot down at Cobb Stadium this past Saturday that was well attended. They raised over $6,000 for their schools. And then you also see, as mentioned previously, turkeys donated for the Sanford Peer Helpers Food Project that's going out for baskets for family in needs. This was done with the assistance of the Sanford Springvale Chamber of Commerce and the Maine Army National Guard. And then we have some upcoming dates. We'll be off Wednesday this week for the Thanksgiving break. The end of the first trimester will be December 2nd, and then midterm break will be, we'll have the holiday break coming in December 23rd. So this hasn't been released yet, fresh off the press, but we'll be able to finalize that with the intent of trying to get that out to our community prior to the holiday.
Okay, thank you. Director's reports.
Good evening. I have a quick report for you this evening. The first item I have for you is just a school safety update. Our schools have completed their annual safety audits. The school safety audit is designed to assess the safety conditions in each of our schools to identify and, if necessary, develop solutions for physical safety concerns, including building security issues. There are three major areas that this survey looks at. Looks at, first of all, exterior, looking at our fences, gates, lighting, building and grounds, our surveillance cameras, our access to our buildings, walkways, and on other areas. Also looks at the interior. So looking at the interior, looking at our cameras, two-way communication, looking at our lighting, hallways, cafeterias, and other areas. And also the third major area it looks at is our traffic and parking lot safety. For example, are our bus lanes clearly marked? Are staff assigned to monitor the bus areas? And then other safety considerations that go along with that. The process that is taken is that safety representatives on the safety committee, as well as our head custodians and admin, work during the fall to conduct this. They return it into central office where we collate the information. And then we share this information with the maintenance and facilities director and with the central office team. Once we have this information, we look at what are those short-term things, what are those things that need to be done right away, and we have the means to do them right away, and what are some of those long-term things that we need to really plan for and have budget implications with that. So that is underway. There'll be more to come as we hit the budget season coming up in January. We also last week were scheduled to have our safety drills in our buildings. In light of the events that happened last week, we were unable to conduct those, but we will be planning to do those sometime as we return from the holiday break. I think when we do those drills coming up, we're just going to have to be very explicit to students, staff, and parents to let them know ahead of time that, hey, we're going to be practicing these drills for folks, not to cause panic with that, because they are important to our student and staff safety. Wellness Committee, just to give you a quick update in the Wellness Committee. We did meet last week. There are a lot of great events that are happening within our schools to support students and staff. November, the focus has really been on gratitude. Students and staff have been encouraged to write notes of gratitude to one another. Clubs, we've also had clubs that have began in the elementary level in particular. They had a bowling club at MCS. I know CGL had a fitness club and a running and a walking club as well with that. And in December, we are going to be doing a district-wide initiative called 12 Days of Wellness Challenge, where we're going to encourage staff and students to participate in wellness challenges, and we have some raffles for staff as well. And the last piece with wellness is that our main integrated youth health survey results have been released and are available, and we will be meeting the Tuesday after Thanksgiving to start reviewing those results. We were supposed to meet last week, but that once again got postponed, so we'll begin looking at those, see what we're doing well, see what the data is telling us, and then make a plan for action moving forward. We are thinking in terms of the schedule to come back to the school committee sometime beginning in January of one of our first meetings to share that information. So,
To share a presentation on the results.
Yep. And that's all the information I have for you tonight until we get to policies.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions, concerns?
No? Okay, thanks, Steve.
Hello, everybody. Just give me a second. I need to share my screen. All right. I am here tonight to give you an update or some data from our NWEA fall tests. So I do this every year. I kind of start where our students are testing in the fall, and then we revisit in the spring. The idea with NWEAs is we want to see growth from our students. So just a brief overview, and I shared this with you last year as well. I'm sorry. Okay. So this is the 21st year that Sanford School Department has been using the NWEA for data. We began using it long before the state made it their educational assessment. And what we like about it is it shows trends across grades for district-wide needs, but it also reduces it right down into what the classroom needs, and you get your results within 24 hours. So it's very actionable data for teachers in the classrooms. It assesses Common Core standards. This year, we're assessing grades 1 through 10. Grades 3 through 8 and grade 10 are mandatory for the state. I did want to make note that we decided this year not to assess kindergarten students for the first time until the winter. It takes them a while to learn how to use the iPads, and so we wanted to give them more time to be acclimated to the technology so it wouldn't interfere with taking the assessment. So they'll be doing that in January. And then the state also changed their requirement. For many years, their main educational assessment was geared towards 11th grade, and they listened to the feedback from districts and curriculum directors, and we told them that we'd rather get the data sooner in high school rather than by 11th grade so that we have more time to act on the opportunity to support our students. So they heard us, and they changed that mandatory year to 10th grade for this year. And they also last year implemented the language assessment. They removed that this year. So we're back to just doing the reading and math assessments. And each assessment can take, on average, between 45 and 90 minutes. And for some high school students, as I'm sure you guys can attest, it can take a little longer because those reading passages get really, really long. And this is why. Sorry, hold on. There we go. Okay. So what does the NWEA do? It's a measure, we use the MAP test, which is it's a computer adaptive multiple choice test. So what it does is as a student answers a test correctly, the next question is going to be a little harder. Until the student gets a question wrong, then it goes a little easier. And what it does is it kind of finds the sweet spot of where the student is in their learning. So what's nice about this particular assessment is that it will challenge those top-level performers while not overwhelming those students who aren't quite there, which is one of the reasons why we like it. And again, the way they ask those questions helps us to really narrow down where their strengths and their weaknesses are in their learning so that teachers can implement supports. And I don't know why this isn't working. There we go. Okay. So the MAP, what it does is it identifies instructional level versus mastery. Mastery is something that you're looking for at the end of a course. You've learned all the content. What this does is it provides information about the student's current instructional level, and it kind of provides that roadmap towards achieving mastery, but it does not assess mastery at all. What it's looking for is growth. Here's where they started. Here's the pieces that will help you get them where they need to go, and where do they end when we have them assessed back in the spring. So, all right, so as we look at the data coming up, I wanted to kind of give you like, what is it that we're looking for? So NWEA takes and breaks down student scores into 5 different categories: low, low average, average, high average, and high. So if you think about that, like if we were, each of those could represent or should represent 20% to equal the whole 100. So what we're looking for is for the low and low average, so the red and orange, we want to see numbers below the 20th percentile. We want to see our numbers below 20%. The yellow, green, and blue, we're looking to see for our averages to be above the 20th percentile, because that's where we want our students. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so with that being said, we're gonna start with first grade, with math and reading, and I even kind of drew the line in there too. So what I do want to point out is, as we look at grade 1, these are students that weren't affected, by COVID. So our numbers are starting to get back to where they were prior to COVID. And I'm just going to go through them, and if you have a question, please let me know. This is grade 2. So again, in math, you can see that the low and low average, they're both below 20%, which is what our ultimate goal is as we move forward. This is grade 3.
And as you look at that, with grade 3, that was probably one of the biggest impacts on COVID.
Those were the first graders.
That was, yeah, that came back into where that was, and you can see that was impactful.
Yes.
Can you share these with us, like, so that we can compare last year's to this year's, or is that coming up?
I did not compare them to
Okay.
last year, no, but I can get you the information so you can compare them, yep. It's a fine line on how much data to throw, at you in an evening, so this is grade 4. Then we move into the middle school, so this would be grade 5. Grade 6. Seven, and I believe Mr. Nelson shared this link with you so that you also have this in your documents. Grade 8. Then we move into the high school. This is grade 9. And grade 10. And you have to remember for grade 9, that's only half of the grade 9 students, because they only have English or math for half a year. So they take it either in the fall semester, at the beginning and the end of the fall semester, or the beginning and end of the spring semester. So this is literally half of our 9th grade, the scores.
So students who don't have math or English did not take the test. They'll take it at the beginning of the second semester.
Correct, for
And
grade 9.
that'll be like, kind of like their baseline to then
Exactly.
see the growth.
Yep.
for that.
Does everyone test?
Everyone tests, yes. There's a
So
very
for-
small percentage of our special ed students that meet the alternative assessment based on the state requirements.
So if you're a student that's identified in special ed and their level of ability is identified, but they're sitting in maybe a class, a graduating class that's above their identified level of ability, do they take the test for the identified level of ability, or do they take the test for the actual grade that they're in?
So the way NWEA works, it breaks it down, the assessments are grade kindergarten to 2, and then 3 to 5, and then 6 plus. So if they're in high school, they would be in 6 plus. But a lot of our students that might have IEPs, it will state that it's maybe small group. There's certain interventions that we can access during the testing if it's stated in their IEPs for them. And then, I'm sorry?
I just to be to clarify, so basically if you have a third grader who's really at like a first grade level, they are taking the third grade test.
Correct. Yep. Just like if we have a 10th grader who's potentially reading at a 5th grade level, they're still taking the 6 through 12, the 6 plus. Yep. Yep. And then this is grade 10. So in grade 10, where this is the mandatory grade level, they were all tested. So this is our whole grade 10 class, whether they had English and math in semester 1 or not. We tested them during Spartan time, and then we will do it again in the spring. And they won't have to do anything in January.
Because this is one that is required by the state as one of those grade levels that record. So you need to have the fall and the spring.
In the spring, yep, to meet the expectations and the requirements.
Okay.
All right, so what are we doing? We're looking at this data. So for math instruction, this year, we have now integrated or implemented Reveal Math in kindergarten through Algebra 2. And what that has, it works towards mastery of skills. It's not a spiraling curriculum like everyday math used to be. The K-5 has built-in classroom interventions that teachers can use for small group. They do exit tickets. Those exit tickets help the teachers. This group of students needs a little bit of work on this. This group of students can be pushed on this area. So the program is really supportive of that small group instruction to meet students where they're at. 6th grade through Algebra 2, they have an ALEX intervention and enrichment program. So that will take our NWEA scores and kind of create a pathway, or the teachers can assign things in the students. If they notice that they might be struggling in something, they can assign a small module. Most of the time it has another short video to be retaught and then some activities to try it again. And then in literacy, we also have a K-4 math coach, and we currently have a grade 5 through 8 math interventionist to help continue to support our students and staff. For literacy instruction, we have 2 K-4 literacy coaches. We have a 5 through 8 literacy consultant that we're using to help with our English language teachers. We use small group instruction, grades 9 through 12 to have leveled courses, and we also utilize Spartan time in order to meet our students where they're at. And try to help them kind of gain back what they lost during those COVID years. So then what comes next, we have a winter screening window. That's usually used as a snapshot to see growth for grades 1 through 9. And this will be the first test for kindergarten, and that window is from January 9th to February 3rd. And then the final spring testing window is May 1st through May 26th. And these testing windows are dictated by the state, and we can't deviate from them. So, and so then any questions? Sorry to find a little happiness in data somewhere.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's each of the school committee members, right?
Now you have to figure out who's who, just saying.
Anybody have any questions for Beth?
Jonathan's like, I don't know. And so then once we do our assessments in the spring, I will do a comparison. And like I said, what we want to see is growth in our students. We want to see that they've met their growth goals and that our scores have moved them forward. So that's the ultimate goal.
Okay.
No questions?
Any questions?
Okay, great.
Thank you. Okay, this one is done. No old business. Next is resignations and retirements, staff appointments, staff transfers, and staff nominations.
Sure, 2 resignations to announce. Kim Marie Normand as an Ed Tech 2 at Carl J. Lamb, effective end of this month. Cole Hathaway, second shift custodian at Sanford High School. A couple appointments, Kevin Kitchen, third shift custodian at the high school. And I don't think Melissa McDonald is going to take the position after all. So I don't think she's going to get appointed because since this went out, she has let us know that she's not going to be taking that position. And then transfers, Katie Spielik, kitchen personnel at the middle school. That's just increase in hours at the middle school, going from 4.5 to 5.25 for that. And there are no nominations to take action on.
Okay, moving forward to policies and procedures.
Good evening. I have one policy and one procedure this evening. A review of the Sanford School Nutrition Department procurement practices from school year 2022 was conducted to ensure compliance with federal regulations as well as applicable local laws. As a result of the review, the Sanford School Department is required to make the changes to the following policy and procedure. Policy GJH, Purchasing and Contracting, Procurement Staff Code of Conduct. This policy is intended to assist school units in complying with the requirements of the Uniform Grant Guidance, a set of rules that requires local school administrative units who receive federal awards to have in place specific written procurement and conflict of interest policies and procedures which would apply to any solicitation or contract for goods or services that uses federal funds. And so we have some additions to this policy. The first one was a definition for immediate family member. We clarified what that is. We added a section in there in regards to staff gifts and solicitation, and that addition is the employees, officers, and agents of the Sanford School Department may neither solicit nor accept gratuities, favors, or anything of monetary value from contractors or parties of subcontractors. Employees may accept unsolicited items of nominal value, such as those generally distributed by a company or organization through its public relations program. And then we updated the legal references at the bottom of the page of that policy. Procedure DJE-R, Purchasing and Contracting, Procurement Staff Code of Conduct. Procedure DJE-R ensures compliance with the procurement and purchase of property, goods, and services using any federal award, in whole or in part, that is subject to the Uniform Federal Grant Guidance. And in this, we had Section I of this procedure. It had exceptions to the procedure, and we had listed the school nutrition program, and that is, they still have to follow those regulations. And so those 2 lines have been deleted, and I recommend approval to those. And I would just like to thank Cheryl Fournier, who helped put those together as they deal with the business office.
Whoops, sorry, all in favor. Yes. Okay, no items for future agenda. Calendar announcements. Mr. Nelson.
Sure. So as I mentioned, we have the Thanksgiving break coming up this week. Our next meeting will be on Monday, December 5th. I know John's unavailable that day, but I also think there's going to be a workshop prior to that meeting. Still finalizing the scope of that, but I think it's going to be around committees, assignments, subcommittees, and onboarding of our new school committee members. Our second meeting in December is on the 19th, Monday, December 19th. And then we will start, you'll see January's meetings listed there, and a reminder that on late January, Monday, the 23rd, is when we're going to continue our committee budget workshop. In our leadership team meeting last week with the city, we're still trying to finalize how that's going to work, in that we really want to make sure these workshops are also recorded and available for our city council members to access them if they're available, or if they're not, at least to be able to see that recording, because as you know, that's us going through the different warrant articles, but it's also an educational component as well, as we start talking about subsidy and the EPS formula and different things that way with it. So that's what we have upcoming.
Thank you so much. I think I'm going to make a recommendation to adjourn this meeting. So moved, seconded by Amy. All in favor? All in favor, 7:17.